Hello and welcome into another edition of the JMac podcast. This podcast is not live because I have been under the weather and I am recording late at night because I want to get this information out to you. But what I will do is a follow-up live broadcast where I ask the question that I'm about to ask you because I really want your feedback on it. And you know I love your instant live real-time comments. The question of the day is, should the GOP choose President Trump in 2024 as their nominee? Now, I just heard some of you, even though we're not live, screaming at me, Jay, Trump hasn't lost this election yet. Why are you talking as though he is a loser? Well, because he has lost. And he is just stringing this out for whatever reason. And look, I've looked at every allegation. If there's something that you think that I'm missing, I've done several podcasts now on all the claims of voter fraud. There just have been no verifiable cases of widespread voter fraud that would change the results in any state. And people are saying, but in 2000, Al Gore, remember he was declared the winner. Such a different case. They only needed to flip one state in that situation. Right now, they have to flip, 3 to 5 states? Look, I appreciate the hope, but it's just not going to happen. And this president has yet to reveal his widespread voter fraud to the people or to the courts. And he's losing in the courts. So, look, you can disagree with me. We can agree to disagree on that, but I've been covering elections for 20 years, and I can tell you everything that we've seen so far being called election fraud. There have been individual cases, sure, and there have been anomalies, but they're just that. They're not indications of intentional fraud. And what's very interesting to me is you have internet sleuths out there who've suddenly become election experts in the last 7 days, and they're finding these stories and they're sharing them and they're saying, see, this is proof of election fraud. What's so funny to me is the president isn't picking up on those claims. He's not filing lawsuits based upon those claims. He's tweeted a couple of times about those claims, but all of his supporters are saying, see, here it is, and look at this, and look at this. He's either not paying attention to him or he doesn't see merit in those claims. And his legal team is dwindling. It's getting smaller. Now, some people say that he's fighting for America. He's fought for America for 4 years and he's going to continue to fight. I think he's fighting for himself. I think that when you've been making claims of widespread election fraud for 4 years, his first claim came in 2016, and you haven't been able to provide that evidence, and you make it on election night before you could even know if fraud occurred, I think you're fighting for yourself and for your job. And you're throwing our entire electoral process under the bus. That's what I think. That's my opinion. Now, it is an opinion, and obviously you can disagree with me if you want. And as I said, I will do a live probably tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, if you're listening right now, Tuesday the 16th of November, and we'll get your feedback and definitely allow you to chime in. You could even live stream with me and come on via video chat if you want, and we can engage in that conversation. I'm certainly willing to entertain anything that you have to say, but I digress. Let's get to this point. Should the GOP choose Trump in 2024? My answer to this goes in line with something that I've said and responded to people who say there's no way that Joe Biden could have won campaigning from his basement and not doing rallies and nobody attending his rallies. Look at all the support for President Trump. In my opinion, this election was never about Joe Biden. It could have been a painting on the wall of an unnamed president who would be a Democrat. And I think the votes would have been the same. This election was about President Trump. And President Trump has a unique ability. And it is because of this ability that I say to you, I do not think that it would be wise for the Republicans to choose him as their nominee in 2024 or to even hold on to him in any capacity as a member of the party. He apparently, according to reports, he wants to continue to lead the party. The reason for that is people only see one side. They say, look at this 71 million people. Look at this support and the rallies. The problem is that this president has a unique ability to create tremendous fanatical support on one side. But what does he create on the other side? Does he create consideration for his ideas? Do people in the middle sit there and go, maybe I should be along with this guy? No. President Trump, for the most part, if you look at the voting and the election results and the exit polling, creates two emotions: love and hate. People who just adore him and people who are angered by him every single day and every single thing that he does. Now, this is a great characteristic to have if you want to have a successful talk show, if you want to have a successful TV show. I've been told for years that you want listeners who either love you or hate you. You want that range of emotion. That the people in the middle don't do much good for you. Well, that may be true in entertainment, but it is not true in elections, especially if you have the unique ability of this president to create more people that dislike you than you are able to create people who like you. And that's clearly what happened here. Now, it's close. It's a close divide. But when your tactics fire up the opposition enough to cause you to lose office, then you ought to sit back and say, wait a minute, is this good for the party? Because the situation isn't going to change much. I mean, if he ran again in 24, do you think that all the people who voted against him will be suddenly less incentivized to do so? I mean, I think that you would have to have some very clear changes in circumstances. So, for example, the economy would have to be doing terribly in 4 years. Other factors would have joblessness, all kinds of things would have to be in the tank, worse than ever after 4 years. And I just don't think that that's going to happen. I think that what we're looking at right now is we're going to continue to be down for a few more months, maybe into spring. And then hopefully everyone will start getting the vaccine, and that will allow us to get back to work. My concern is that President Trump, while fast-tracking the vaccine, has been downplaying the virus and telling people it will go away without a vaccine. So I'm worried that diehard Trump supporters will not be willing to go out and get the vaccine because they'll consider it a hoax. If that is the case, our recovery time will take longer and longer and longer. So that could be a recipe that in 4 years things aren't better because, can you imagine? COVID would still be harassing us. But I think, for the most part, my hope is that we'll be past the pandemic by the middle of 2021. And if that's the case, Joe Biden will take credit for one of the greatest economic recoveries of our time. And of course, he won't be responsible for that. Just like I think Trump has taken way too much credit for the economy turning around. And so has President Obama. I don't think presidents really generally control economies. I think that that is a myth. I think that the American spirit is what brought this country back, and it will always bring this country back as long as we don't legislate enough of it away. As long as we protect the American dream, it will still be there. And we know from the past that a tax increase is not going to destroy the entire American dream. It can have an impact, though. And so Joe Biden has got to be careful in that regard. But again, back to the point, project to 2024, President Trump is still in the same situation. He has a fanatical base that adores him, and then he has a larger base that can't stand him. It's not a recipe for success in elections. It's just not. Now, you may say, well, how did he win 2016? Well, 2016, people didn't realize what type of president he would be for 4 straight years. Also, I believe people did not come out to vote for Hillary Clinton for 2 reasons. They weren't particularly inspired by her, and also the inaccurate polling showed that she was so far ahead that people didn't need to get out and vote. I don't think you're going to see people make that mistake with President Trump ever again. They know his colors. They know who he is. And so I think it would be a tremendous mistake. But I think that because he received, 71 million votes, that many people are going to cling to him and cling to his policies. And I lament that because that's a recipe for wanting to keep him around. And I know they blame the media, and I know they blame the left for everything that happened to Trump. And if he was just allowed to be president for even a day, then he would still be president. But they destroyed him. Well, that's a complete denial for me of everything that the president said and did during his administration. Not everything, but many things. He demanded negative coverage every single day. I think he looked at the news cycle and said, there's nothing out there about me today. I'm going to send out a tweet. And that tweet is going to be inflammatory. I have actually gone back to some key moments in his presidency that, if handled just a little bit different, I think he would be in office for 4 more years. And I think that he miscalculated in these circumstances. And I think he did it because of his ego. And I think he did it because early on, he adopted this belief that his base got him elected. And so all he needs to do is cater to his base, and then he will be reelected. Now, since the day of his election, I have been warning Republicans that that will not be the case. I believe that what I predicted has played out, and that because he made no attempt to play for the middle, he made every attempt to just attack the left, that, again, he caused a movement against him that is more powerful than the movement for him. And again, that's great for TV and for ratings. Horrible if you want to be a president. You've got to find a way to motivate people to have more people who like you and get behind you than people who dislike you. Now, it's okay to have people in the middle who are not decided. But in this case, it appears with this voter turnout bigger than we've seen per capita and just in sheer numbers for the longest time, I think that there's something to be learned there. Unfortunately, I don't know if Republicans are going to learn that lesson or not, especially when they were able to pick up seats in the House and may possibly, I think they're going to keep control of the Senate, which, as I've said, I'm okay with. I don't mind President-elect Biden being checked in his power. I don't mind that at all. Okay, so think about this. What are some of the key moments when you look back? And I've talked about many of these. So for some of you, it's going to be a repeat. Some of them I haven't talked about. But looking back on his presidency, what are some key moments where if he would have just sat back for a minute and didn't knee-jerk react, would this be different? Would he have not created a bigger movement against him than he created in his favor? Obviously, the number one thing that comes to mind is COVID. Now, I think that he miscalculated on COVID to such a degree that those people who tell me he's always playing 3D chess while everyone else is playing checkers, He's not even playing Connect 4 when it comes to COVID-19. He miscalculated on this to a degree that I believe that alone could have been the difference. And he didn't have to, people, I hear people, well, he didn't want to shut down the economy. He couldn't do that. We couldn't shut down our schools. We couldn't do this. You didn't have to do any of that. That's the thing. And I've done an entire podcast on this. But he didn't have to choose between the economy and COVID. Imagine if he had just done a few things differently. Just a few. What if he wore a mask in public? What if at his events he had social distancing and everybody wore a mask? What if that's all he did? What if then he said, it's up to the states to decide. We want them to follow CDC guidelines, but we really need and want every single business to be open as quickly as possible. And the best way to do that is to follow our example. We are the White House. We have not shut down. We are operating, but we're doing so with a couple of changes. We have people telecommuting. We have people wearing masks. We have people social distancing. So we want America and states and businesses and schools to follow our example. Now, would the death toll be different? That's hard to say. I have a hard time when anybody blames the death toll on President Trump. I don't like that because there's really no way to know. But I do believe that there are people who got the virus because they were around people who refused to wear a mask. I do believe that the virus is at an all-time high because there are people who refuse to social distance and refuse to wear masks. Could it have happened anyway? Sure. The flu has its season every year, so it's entirely possible. That's my belief based upon the research and the studies that I've seen. But imagine how different the perception would be of him. Now, would the media have continued to blast him? Of course. You always have a left-leaning media out there. Ronald Reagan had to deal with it. Every Republican president has had to deal with it. But they didn't let that control them. And they didn't provide ammunition to the media. And this is where I think everybody really misses it with Trump. Like the media, they destroy him. He put ammunition in their guns every single day. And so what you want to do as a president, in my belief, is you want to reduce the ammunition. So you don't want to make stupid mistakes. You want to make claims that at least have some basis in fact. So people can say, well, you're spinning. But yeah, there's something to be said for that. And you don't want to, again, give them what they're looking for. But the president couldn't do it. Every single day, he gave them a new reason to go after them. When again, I think what they should have been doing is saying, how do we make sure that this can't be used against us? Because what that does is that puts the people in a place where they can better decide. And I know you're saying, oh, everybody just believes the media. Look, it's not true. I think with social media, people are going to those sources more. It is hilarious to me that the president has been attacking the media for 4 years now. And so people gravitated to Fox News as if they're not biased. And now that Fox News has been doing reporting and doing things like calling the election for Trump, now everybody's bailing to Newsmax because when they say that they want non-biased media, what they're really saying is they don't want to be challenged and they don't want any news or information that goes against President Trump. That is now their definition by their words and their actions of what non-biased media looks like. Shouldn't you be gravitating towards media sources that call it fairly on both sides? I don't know. I'm just crazy like that. Okay, so with COVID, just imagine how different things would be if he had just made a few simple changes to his approach. Listen to the scientists. Wear a mask as an example. You don't have to encourage mask mandates. Just encourage everybody to do it because it's the right thing to do. And because we'll get our country back faster. We'll get our economy back faster if we all pull together, just like people pulled together during World War II. Women went into the factories Everybody stepped up. Everybody did their part. Why? Because they love America and they love each other. And they had a common cause that they fought against. President Trump could have came out and gave rousing speeches about a common cause and a common goal that brings us all together. And that is the fight against COVID-19 and to save our jobs and to save our economy. This was a clear path for me, an easy path. But he miscalculated. He thought COVID was going to take the White House from him. And in trying to keep that from happening, he actually guaranteed that it did happen. That's not a mark of a good leader. That's the mark of somebody who is more concerned about themselves than the fact that hundreds and thousands are dying. And all he had to do was set an example. And people could have lived. And perhaps we could be beyond this point already. Now, he did do some good things when it comes to COVID. Certainly, in my opinion, the stimulus package was much needed. Even though I hate government debt, there are some times if the government's asking you to shut down, then you know what? The government needs to step in and help you out. Otherwise, people are going to end up jobless and homeless and starving on the streets. And so there was a time. And the fast tracking of the virus, of the vaccine. But the problem is that he was fast tracking the vaccine on one hand and likes to tell you about that. But on the other hand, he was telling his supporters that the virus will go away without a vaccine, undermining his own choices and his own decisions. It was amazing to watch and baffling to see him basically contradicting his own actions. If he had just made the slightest change with COVID, it could be different. We could be talking about President-elect Trump for 4 more years. So COVID is a big one for me. Let's talk about crying wolf. I don't know how many people hold this against him, but I certainly do. The voter fraud allegations rang hollow when he started to cry wolf about mail-in ballots. Why did they ring hollow? They rang hollow because in 2016, when he found out that he didn't win the popular vote, he didn't want to hear that. So he just blurted out that millions voted illegally. I actually won the popular vote. Then what did the terrible, awful media do? The terrible, biased, evil media? They said, well, Mr. President, do you have any evidence to support that claim? And he said, of course there's evidence. And they said, evidence is forthcoming. Never came. They called a commission to find the widespread voter fraud. It never came. Then he started talking about mail-in ballot fraud. Everybody said, where's your evidence of that? He never provided it. Then on election night, this election was stolen because of voter fraud before the count is even is even finished, or there's a way to know about fraud. You ever hear about the boy who cries wolf? These things rang hollow. Why would people believe him? Well, the diehards who believe everything that he has to say, they believed him, and they became voting fraud experts and took to the internet to find the evidence. He wasn't providing it. He's still not providing it. The best we've seen so far from this president is allegations that poll watchers weren't allowed to watch and a stack of affidavits that Kayla McEnany waved around that have not held up in any court that I know of so far. Everything else has fallen flat. Yet we're going to come away from this election with millions believing that it was stolen. That is shameful. Let's go back to white supremacy and whether or not this president is a racist. You'll never hear me say that somebody else is a racist. I don't know their heart. I try to judge people based upon the content of their character. But I will tell you that in those moments where you have an opportunity to create clarity, that you use those opportunities. And if you don't, and you leave it wide open if you leave ambiguity, then people will start to doubt and question. And you certainly have provided ammunition to your adversary. And remember, that's something that you should never do. So when the president talked about how there were good people on both sides, remember that claim? He could have easily said this, but in a very different way. Come out and say that I support the right of free speech, and that sometimes people are going to fight for things that we don't agree with, but they still have a right. What I can't condone is anybody who takes their free speech to the point of violence or taking away the rights of others. Then he would have been asked, well, do you condone white supremacy? My friends, this is the easiest question in the book. I ran for office, you know this. There are questions that are hard, and there are questions that are easy. This is the kind of question you want. It's the soft ball over the plate that you swing and you hit it out of the park. You say, no, I don't condone white supremacy. That's it. And I know people, again, his supporters, because he kept getting asked and he kept not answering the question. And then in the debate, he said, stand by and stand down. He kept not answering the question. So what happened? His supporters went online and they found a video of him 4 or 5 years ago where he clearly condemns white supremacy. And they're like, see, right here, he condemns white supremacy. So there, y'all are fake news. Why did he do it so clearly one time, but couldn't bring himself to do it so clearly all the others? Again, don't put ammunition in the gun of your adversaries. Every time they ask, you say, yes, I condemn white supremacy. This is one of the easiest in the book ever. Ever. And he just couldn't do it. And eventually, when they've asked 30 times, and every time they get the same answer, yes, I condemn white supremacy. Yes, I condemn white supremacy. They'll stop asking. But what you've done when you dodge and you weave, and I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why he couldn't bring himself to say it again. Then you open the door up. And then when somebody says he's racist, you've opened up the door. You've left questions. You've left ambiguity there. It's so easy. There is no political damage that is going to come to you in this country if you condemn white supremacy. None. This could have been so easily handled. You know, what's funny is Kayleigh McEnany could do it. Every time she was asked if the president, she could come out and say, no, he condemns it. But he couldn't. Those words just wouldn't flow from his face. Why not? Why not? I don't know. The last thing I'll say where this president could have been different and things could have been different is he made no attempt at the truth ever. And I've already kind of mentioned this. His lies, they honestly happen about as much as he speaks. And we've lost, Republicans, we've lost something now. Because there will be times when President-elect Biden says things that aren't true. He already has. And as president, he will say it. And we will want to be the first to stand up and say, he's lying. And we'll go and fact check it. And what is the response going to be to that? Every time. You want to question Joe Biden after supporting a man who lied and lied and lied and lied every time he spoke? We don't have any moral high ground here anymore. We simply don't. If Joe Biden wants to personally attack somebody or insult somebody, we can't question that. We supported that. We applauded that for 4 years. That's off the table. How many things have we lost because we supported such a divisive person? No, my friends, I would suggest to you that this party look for somebody who doesn't just fire up a base on one side and create an uprising on the other. There are those in our past who faced the liberal media, who faced opposition from the left, who managed to get tremendous support from the middle and even garner support from the left. It is possible. I believe it's possible. But you have to seek to unite. And this president made no attempt to do so. He literally talked in terms of blue states and red states. The blue states are evil. The red states are wonderful. Why would anybody come over to his way of thinking? He is not the great uniter. He was the great divider. In fact, I think he created a bigger division in this country than we've seen since perhaps the Civil War. That's why we have so many people talking about Civil War. Because of the fact that he never ever sought to unite. I'm thinking, who do you think? I'd love to hear it in your comments. We'll talk about this in the live. Who do you think, if not Trump, who do you think is out there that could fight for conservative values, represent Republicans, and make a play for the middle, and not create an uprising that is larger than the following that you're creating? I have a name that comes to mind. Somebody who I have admired for how she handled the Confederate flag situation in her own state. Somebody who sought to work with both sides. Somebody who I consider to be a clear fighter for conservative values. Any ideas who I've given you some hints? Nikki Haley. I would like to start the discussion right now. Nikki Haley, 2024. I think she would serve for 8 years because the base would certainly get behind her, and she knows how to speak to the middle. She's proven that. Although she did get herself into some complicated situations while she worked for President Trump, but she left that. She got out from under it. I think that she would be hard to beat. What do you think? I think that no matter what, if we don't learn that widespread division is not a path to victory, at least for Republicans, if we can't learn that lesson, then we're going to repeat it. And choosing President Trump in 2024, all things being equal, that would be an epic mistake. And it would guarantee another 4 years for whoever the current president is at that time. Notice I didn't say President-elect Biden because it might be President Harris by then. I don't know. The guy's getting old. I can't stand anybody who says he's senile. That drives me crazy. Anybody who calls him a pedophile. Those types of character assassinations have no place, in my opinion. They do nothing. They change nothing. They just inflame the other side and cause an uprising from the other side. So I don't support those. But if we don't choose wisely here in 2024, I think we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. So there you go. I promise I will. Hopefully I'm feeling better by Tuesday, the 16th. If I am, then I will come on and do a live and I'll ask the same question. Should the GOP choose Trump in 2024? I also have another podcast coming about where we stand with COVID. It didn't go away like the president said it was going to go away. In fact, it got worse. Joe Biden is talking about a national mask mandate. I happen to believe that a statewide mandate is constitutional, but a national mask mandate, I don't think that is constitutional. So we'll talk about that. I'm putting that together right now as we speak. Also, please take a minute and scan the barcode that you can see on the screen, or look at the comments of this podcast wherever you are seeing it. Take a minute and become a patron of this podcast. Help me bring this content to you on a regular basis. I want to thank Carolyn, who made a very kind one-time $100 donation. That really helps me out. That helps me bring this content to you on a regular basis. Again, I'd like to do my plan ultimately is to bring you a live daily show, just like the show I was doing on KSL. But in order to do that, I've got to be able to work less at the other jobs I'm doing right now and work more on this job. So you can help me reach that goal by becoming a patron, either a monthly donation or a one-time donation. Both would be tremendous. With that, thank you so much for joining me. Please like this video and share it with as many people as you can. And we'll be discussing the same topic live coming up very soon.